everybody, Creative Katie, Karen Burchill here. Welcome to my channel and an art journal tutorial. This one's called Flower Power. And it is part of my color scheme challenge, light blue permanent, deep violet, and Prussian blue. So I'm just showing you what you can do here to get to know the paints that you have, to see how they're going to behave, and if you're going to get good results or bad results when you mix them wet. So in this little book, and I'll put a link to the full video, I am just mixing the two colors wet to see what alternate color I can make. And then I can use that information to either deliberately make that color or deliberately avoid making that color. And I can refer back into this reference tool to see, oh, I want to get this shade of blue. Oh, if I use this and this, I can get this color. So there is the finished one, and it's all labeled. So this is my 7x10 Canson Mixed Media art journal, and I have gessoed the page and I've taped off the side. And now I am putting on the paint with a makeup sponge. Now, because I've gessoed it, the paint is staying workable longer. It's going to allow me to blend way more than if the page was raw. If the page was raw, it soaks in, it dries faster, and blending is a little bit more difficult. You can totally do both. I applied gesso because I wanted it to blend, but I also wasn't sure what technique I was going to use. So I'm stamping with a foam stamp just to get some marks, because my sole purpose of doing this page was to use those colors. I had no plan after that. So I'm drying this now and just adding a little bit more blue in to add a little bit more contrast to my background. Now I'm going in with this GeoTile stencil. This is new from the Crafters Workshop, and you can buy these through the TCW Shopify link down below. Since they're new, they aren't quite available in Amazon right now. And I'm putting some paint through that stencil. I'm putting paint there and then removing the paint through the stencil. And because there's purple underneath, that's what you're going to see. This one's called Numbers Jumble, and it's not new, but it is new to me. This is the first time I'm putting paint through it. And I'm using white because that's part of the color challenge, to use the colors, and then white and black. Now you can use the white and black to change the shade or the hue of the color. Now I'm coming in with some Prussian blue, one of my all-time favorite colors. And I'm just using the same Numbers Jumble stencil, but dark. And I often do that. I use the same stencil with two of the colors from the background. So I haven't really added any colors to this, although you're seeing a lot of variety because some of the colors have mixed and made other shades. But I absolutely love the background. Now I'm just edging this with the Prussian blue. I have some there. It's on my makeup sponge. So I'm just going around. And this is often something I do when I don't know what the next step is. And it gives me think time. And it also frames the picture. And sometimes that helps give me ideas. I thought I needed more patterns, so that I have this vintage swirl, I think it's called. The correct name will be in the description box below. I'm just adding a little bit more patterning on there. And I'm pushing back some of those numbers because I want that to be more pattern than discernible numbers. So I make this wave, and I'm going to trace that with my white Stabilo. And now with my angle brush, I'm going to use the floating acrylic technique, and shade or highlight here. I want this middle section to kind of stand out from the rest. And I thought, oh, I'm going to try it with the white and see what I get. And there's a lot of trial going on in this video because I don't have a plan. I am solving the problems as they come. Now I have this stencil and mask of this flower that my friend had cut out of vinyl. And I just thought, I'm going to put this flower on here. I'm taping it down because I'm going to use the makeup sponge and I don't want to go over the edge, and it's cut right to the edge. There's no excess. And I'm taking gesso here and I'm going over it repeatedly to get the level of opacity that I want. I want this pretty white. I don't really want to see the background in there. And I like the way the wave that I cut out and this flower work together. I could have put a butterfly there or a dragonfly or any focal image right in the middle, and that wave part just gives it a little something extra in the background. So now I'm going in with white paint. I want it a little bit more opaque, and I'm using an angle brush for that. And that gives me a lot of control with the paint. And I do add just a little bit of water to the paint. And I just keep going. If it's getting kind of gloppy, stop, let it dry, and then come back for another layer. So now I'm shading using the floating acrylic technique, and I'm using Prussian blue around the flower. Now I also want this flower to stand out from the background, and that's why I'm shading around it. And I'm going from one side to the other side and going around. And I'm thinking, okay, am I getting the effect that I want? At this time, I'm thinking I don't want to use black because I'm thinking that's just going to be too harsh on this page. And I've chosen not to use black at this stage. So it's just coming back, building, adding more once it dries. So I've sped this part of the video up. I will put a link to a video. It'll be in the top right-hand corner. If you click on the eye, that will take you to the float acrylic technique video. And you can see I've specifically taught how to do this technique. It's one well worth your practice time. Now I'm going around blue here because I want that wave to stand up, and you can see that that middle section looks like it's raised or in front of the top and bottom. Then I decide, I'm going to paint this middle section blue. And I give it a couple coats of thinned Prussian blue. I'm pushing the pattern back, not trying to obliterate it. I don't want this completely opaque, but I do want that middle section to be a little different. Now I'm doing the float acrylic technique, shading around the outside edges. And adding more shading around the flower. And I do go in with a little bit of black just to add more contrast and really make this flower pop out. So I decided I'm going to put the term flower power here. And I stamped it out on a piece of paper first, just to get the right sizing to see if it's going to fit. And then I'm using my wooden stamps. I'm dipping it into white acrylic paint that I have spread on my craft mat on the side, and I'm stamping, and then I'm cleaning my stamp with a baby wipe. I've had these wooden letter stamps for a long time, and I have not used them, and I'm going, oh my, what? I love using them now. It's just another way to put a sentiment on your page. Now, if you don't like the coverage, and the look of it being so imperfect, you can go and take a gel pen or a liner brush and paint that in so that it's more solid white. I like it the way it is. This stencil's called Ethereal, and it had this little flower, and I thought, I'm going to put this flower with the deep violet on top of the flower. Leaving the flower white, it was just too white. It just stood out. And this is what I mean by, as I continued during the page, ideas came to me. Sometimes I stop, I sleep on it, it sits for a couple days, and that's okay too. So I'm really liking that. It's kind of introduced an actual flower to the page, somewhere else on the page other than the white. Then I thought, I'm going to shade with the deep violet on the inside of the flower, just to give it a little bit more weight on the page, I guess, just so it looks like it has more value. So I'm really liking the page, and now I'm shading more in here. I want this middle section to stand out. You'll see me using this wave more often. I love that effect, and I think it's a great way of breaking up a page, adding interest to a page. I'm going with a little bit of the black around the outside edge. I grab my fine line bottle, and I'm going to just go on this, give a nice thick line of white, bright white on top of everything. Now that we have kind of the finished page here, or close to the finished page, now thought, I need a center for my flower. And I got a whole bunch of die cut circles. And I thought, okay, I'll put a circle in the middle. And I came across my crazy birds. And I thought, they would be so cute in the middle. So I additioned the different ones. I have these pre-cut out. Now I'm painting it with deep violet and light blue permanent. I'm using my fingers, and then I grab a small angle brush. Again, I love using an angle brush. It allows you to really get in there. And I'm mixing the paints because I want, it's more interesting when you have several tones on something than when it's one color, it looks more flat. And now I'm using the float acrylic technique just to shade with the Prussian blue. Now the stamp has some of the details in it, so I'm shading where the lines are, and then just adding more. Just going whatever looks good to my eye at the time. And this is cut out on mixed media paper. I'm using gel medium instead of matte or the liquid because this is heavier paper, and the gel typically works better for heavier papers. Gluing that down. I could have done him in orange. I think that would have made some real pop in color because that's opposite the purple on the color wheel. I'm removing the tape, and I'm doing kind of a sketchy outline with the fine line bottle. I love these fine line bottles. Inside this, I have my heavy-bodied white paint that I've thinned, and it's just kind of trial and error, no recipe, just with water. And then I think I'm going to go around this. Now, it would have been easier to do this before I glued the crazy bird down, but again, I didn't know I was doing that. So here are some close-ups of the finished project. If you like this, give me a thumbs up. If you've got a suggestion for a color scheme, put it in the comment section below. I'd love to hear it. I'll add it to my list. Thank you, as always, for joining me in my creative journey. Bye for now.